What's up, everyone? My name is Will Powell, host of WILLPOWER, where we are all about transforming potential into success. And I'm thrilled to have my good friend Cyrus Lemon on the show today for episode number 1. Cyrus is a fellow EOS implementer, aka business coach, working with dozens of organizations across the Midwest. He is a former gym owner. He is also a former Division I collegiate athlete where he played football at North Dakota State for the Bison. And we don't hold that against him because I played for the USD Coyotes. And lastly, he is a husband and a father to 5 beautiful girls. And so I'm thrilled for you guys to listen to our conversation today because it is vast and we dive deep into the similarities between football and business, the similarities between a championship sports team and a successful enterprise. We talk about the similarities between a personal trainer and coaching in business. We talk about how in order for an organization to succeed, it starts with having a vision and great people. The conversation is very wide ranging. I'm thrilled for you guys to listen to it. So without further ado, let's get into it. Cyrus, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey man, thanks so much for having me. It really is I think this is your inaugural episode potentially, right? Depending on
Yes,
where it
sir.
airs. So I appreciate, it's an honor being asked to be on, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, my inaugural episode. So I wouldn't have had anyone else on here but you, man.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
So, Cyrus, let's get right into it, man. You were a successful collegiate athlete, obviously a part of one of the greatest football programs in the United States. It kills me to say that, but it's true. How did football prepare you for your professional career?
Yeah, man. So I was thinking about that a little bit, and I think it prepared me in so many ways that I didn't appreciate at the time. And then now, hindsight, 18 years later, whatever it is, I'm looking back, and there are really some key moments that really kind of shaped who I am and who I was then and what I became. I think at the end of the day, in EOS, and I'm sure you talk about this with your clients, we do three things, right? Vision, traction, healthy. And then to do that, we teach, we facilitate, and we coach. And I think that a big emphasis is put on the teach and the facilitate, but not a huge emphasis on the coach. And I think that playing college football at the level we played at really put us in a position to coach better than some other people in the organization or really in the world. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, facts. There's so many things that we learned from playing football that maybe we didn't understand at the time, but now it's so clear. Even some basic things as far as hard work, perseverance, how to persevere through adversity, how to be a part of a team and all work together in accordance to achieve that common goal, right? Like I think one of the greatest things that I think about when I look back to playing college football was you had 80 something guys coming together from different backgrounds, different walks of life. You had a Mexican guy from Mexico. You had a black guy from Chicago. You had a rich kid from Florida, white, black, Asian. It didn't matter. And you all came together to work towards this common goal and you grinded day in and day out to achieve that common goal. Like that's such a powerful thing to
Oh, yeah.
experience.
And maybe this is a tangent or a squirrel we shouldn't go down. But my wife and I talk about all the time that everybody should play a team sport for that reason, just because it really just removes all the barriers that are, whether intentionally there or not intentionally there, between humans. And it's like, to your point, everyone is focused on one thing, nothing else matters. And it really is just a melting pot of humans, which if you blend together appropriately, you might get a championship, you might not, but it's good to get everybody on the same page.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and I talk about this all the time in regards to a CEO of an organization is literally has the same roles as a head coach of a football team or a sports team. In that they have to blend together all these different personalities, all these different skill levels, and develop that talent. Actually, first recruit that talent to the organization,
Right.
develop that talent, help them get more out of themselves than they even thought was possible, and then help get them all bought into this common goal and help the team get to that place. And it's the same thing in organizations. I mean, we see it day in and day out.
Yeah, absolutely. So ironically, I was in a session yesterday and I was talking to the visionary, the CEO, and I asked him, what was the best career advice he had ever received. And he said, the best thing I learned to do was to get the right people on my team, right? So get the right coordinators, get the right CFO team, whatever, get the right team around you, and then get the heck out of their way and let them do their thing. And I think I saw that at NDSU, where our head coach, Coach Bull, he was hands off, right? People might say he was hands off with like the day-to-day stuff in running practice, but he did a really good job of bringing the best coordinators in the world to that program, who have now gone off to be the head coach of K-State. There's coaches in the league, but he really let them do their thing. And I see the same thing in these organizations. The best CEOs, the best visionaries, they're not micromanaging every department. They get the right people on the bus, they get the right leaders there, and they get out of their way, and they let them lead, manage, and hold their team accountable.
I'm so happy that you went into that, because sometimes these head coaches that aren't involved in the X's and O's, aren't as involved in the day-to-day and tactics of the sport. Sometimes they're criticized, but then you take a step back and you're like, no, they are truly the CEO of these organizations, and they are running the show, doing all the operational things that are necessary to help this team succeed. And
Correct.
It's putting the right people in the right seats, something that we talk about all the time with EOS. If you hire that great offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, then that makes your job as the head coach a lot easier.
Yeah.
And it's so cool for us to see that now in the business world in regards to these CEOs, these visionaries who, when they have the right integrator, when they have the right COO or the right president and the right staff in place, then it makes his job a lot easier, so he can do the most important things for the organization.
Because we can think about it on a practical level. Just think how ridiculous and redundant it would be if your offensive coordinator was inadequate. So your head coach had to do all the offensive coordinator jobs. So now you got two people doing one job, one guy's inadequate, and then all the high-level stuff's not getting done. We'd be like, we'd be like, why are we doing this? Like, why is my head coach running our one-on-ones? Why is our head coach running the drills? Like, why is this guy even here? So we can see it on a football level. It would make no sense and it wouldn't happen, right? They'd fire that guy in a heartbeat. It wouldn't happen. But we see it all the time in organizations where there's an inadequate player on the leadership team level or anywhere, and then their superiors doing their job for them. It just doesn't make sense. But since they're in the business all the time, they never zoom out. They don't necessarily see it. But if you just say it out loud like that, it's ridiculous.
And man, I love where this conversation is headed, because that's what happens in organizations, right? And I like to talk about construction because I have a lot of background in construction. Is what you have typically a project manager type or a superintendent type who's used to being in the field, swinging a hammer, doing those things. He starts a company, it grows, he hires some people, it grows and grows. Next thing he knows, he has 50 employees, and he can't be that project manager or that superintendent swinging a hammer anymore. He's got to be a CEO. And that's where he has to delegate and elevate. He can't hold on to all those responsibilities. Otherwise, the organization has no chance of succeeding down the line. And to your point, that really hit home with me in thinking about a head coach who's putting players through cone drills or putting players through bag drills. It doesn't happen, right?
They'll maybe check in here and there, right? They come over, they hover for a little bit, you're a little nervous, but they're not doing it every single day.
Right, because it takes away from his responsibilities of truly running the organization.
Correct.
You can dabble, but you can't be focused on those smaller tasks. And that's, again, why it's so powerful with EOS and what we do as a profession in regards to that project manager that started the company 5 years ago, that's still holding on to all those things, and maybe doesn't know how to be a true CEO or be a true head coach. EOS is that framework that allows him to run that organization to the best of his abilities, delegating those things, getting the right people in the right seats. It's just absolute gold.
I mean, now, because my brain now, I'm going all over the place, but imagine, because at the end of the day, these head coaches are still humans, right? So imagine you're a offensive coordinator or a position coach, and the head coach gets fired, and you get elevated into that head coaching role. Some people can just naturally take on that role, right? Some people got it, and some people aren't going to feel comfortable there. So if they're feeling unsure or not confident or uncomfortable, they're going to go back to their skill set, which is running the cone drill. Like, let me get back to where I feel comfortable. And they don't have a blueprint to tell them this is how to be a head coach. On the business aspect, these people who are in that situation that get elevated into that role, whether intentionally or unintentionally, They are lucky in the sense that they do have a blueprint and it's called EOS, right? We will help them make that jump from entrepreneur to organization, and they do have some guiding principles to follow. They just have to know it's available and they have to do the thing.
Absolutely. Well, and that's what happened to me when I started Podium, my football recruiting business 10 plus years ago. After a couple of years, after raising significant money, and just kind of scrambling, like we weren't producing significant revenue and we were working really hard, but kind of spinning our wheels. Right. And I hadn't been a part of a larger organization. I hadn't seen what it took to run a successful organization. And that was when a friend recommended reading Traction and learning about EOS. And I'm like, this is the framework I've been missing.
Yeah.
This is what I've been needing all along, is just how to run this business, how to do the little things, even run meetings, how to have a simple scorecard to track metrics,
Right.
how to build out the structure of the organization. Like, that is when a light bulb went on for me for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, so there's a couple parts of it, right? So first you have to, I talk to my clients about this all the time. There's two levers that work independently. There's the competency lever. You have to learn the thing, right? So you're saying, I had to learn these tools, right? I had to learn the scorecard. I had to learn these things. I had to learn how to set the vision, all of these tools that you have to learn. And the other lever is the compliance lever, right? Like you have to actually, after you learn it, you have to actually do it. And I think that's another place where football and EOS kind of merge, is discipline and accountability are baked in to EOS, right? Because a lot of people, they'll listen to the podcast, hope they're listening to this one. They'll read the books. So they're understanding the thing, right? They understand how to run a scorecard, but then they don't actually do it, right? So EOS is a combination of those things to help you understand and then hold you accountable to actually doing it. A quick story. I always tell this story. It's one of my favorite stories on the topic. Our defensive coordinator, who was one of my favorite coaches of all times, and we can talk about what he taught me that led itself to EOS, but we were freshmen and he was talking to us and another guy, and he kept saying practice after practice. This is the first 2 weeks, freshman year, first 2 weeks. And he keeps talking about, like, you guys have potential, you guys have potential. And then finally, like, we're having a bad couple practices and he's just, you know how it gets a little, you're fired up. So we're in our defensive backs meeting and he catches himself like, you guys have so much potential. Then he stops and he goes, man, forget y'all potential. You got to start making some plays. Like, potential. He's like, your potential is going to get me fired. And the point is, like, it doesn't matter if you have the potential to do something if you don't consistently execute on that thing, right? So when I always say, like, your potential could get someone fired if you don't execute on that potential. And that's where EOS comes in, helping you execute on that potential.
I love that story. And that's truly what this podcast is all about. It's about transforming potential into success, and the willpower that it takes to transform that potential into success. And what a blessing for us to be able to be EOS implementers and help organizations realize that success just from implementing the system, hoping to hold them accountable and help them get to where they want to go. So awesome, Cyrus. So let's rewind a little bit. What inspired you to become an entrepreneur after having a successful collegiate career in sports?
Yeah, great question. So as soon as I got to NDSU, so I grew up in an environment where it wasn't the best environment, we'll say that. And when I got to NDSU, I was immediately enamored by the coaches because there were guys that looked like me, right? My skin color, that were highly successful, that were well-spoken, that they were everything that I wanted to be. And I just remembered being enamored by the coaches. Like, man, I didn't know guys like you existed. I didn't know I could get this close to you, right? So having them literally within arm's reach, I'm like, I wanted to emulate everything that they were. So I made a decision early on at NDSU that I wanted to be a coach. And me and my strength coach had a really good relationship. We still do. Shout out, Coach Kramer. And so I made a decision that I want to be a strength and conditioning coach, Division I or professional. I want to be a strength and conditioning coach. So I got my degree in exercise science. And as soon as I got done playing, I started my coaching career, went back to NDSU and was the grad assistant in the strength and conditioning room. And now everything was going in the direction I wanted to go. And then, like Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan to get punched in the face, right? So my plan was derailed a bit where my wife got pregnant with our first daughter. And as you know, now we have 5 little girls. But Raising a young family in that world is hard, as you know. The hours are long. It can be volatile. If the coaching staff gets fired, I get fired. It wasn't something I wanted to raise my young family in. So I pivoted from strength and conditioning into personal training, right? Just coaching, just helping people. Did that very successfully for over a decade. Long story short, man, I opened a gym in downtown Minneapolis in August 2019, which you look at the timing right before the pandemic was terrible timing. And then you look at the location, downtown Minneapolis, right on the brink of the George Floyd incident. It was just bad timing, bad location. The gym shut down and I was kind of just looking for what was going to be next. And fortunately, one of my personal training clients was a very successful EOS implementer. And he said, I think you should do what I do. And I honestly was like, what do you do? Right? Like, I've known the guy for whatever, 6, 7 years at this point. I'm like, what do you do? And he said, I do exactly what you do. I help people stay disciplined and accountable to achieving their goal. So that was my first introduction to EOS. And that's when I put on a different coaching hat, went from the weight room to the boardroom, but I'm still just coaching humans, man.
Wow. Well, really quick, let's shout out the guy who got you to EOS because he's a legend.
Yeah, Mike Payton, man, Mike Payton. I wouldn't be here without him. So, and I texted him the other day and just thanked him for seeing something in me at that time that I hadn't necessarily seen in myself yet. And he just responded back, "You need a better mirror." So, yeah,
That's awesome. Well, he is a legendary implementer, a former visionary of EOS. So, I mean, how cool that he is the one that brought you into
yeah,
EOS and how cool that you trained him on your end. And so,
yeah.
along those lines, Cyrus, you touched on it briefly, but what are the similarities between personal training and being an EOS implementer, coaching businesses?
Yeah, it's really kind of the same thing I already touched on with this whole idea of like competency and compliance, right? Like a lot of people understand what they need to do in fitness, right? And of course, there's intricacies and there's rabbit holes. You can go as deep as you want, but in general, people understand the 4 or 5 main things, right? Like work out more, eat less, get sleep, eat whole foods. Like people understand that, so it's not a lack of like understanding typically. And of course, again, you can go down there's some intricacies where people might have some anomalies but in general. So personal training really comes down to accountability, right? How do we then take these principles, these tools, and adjust them to fit the person? And then how do we make sure that they actually execute? And that's the art of coaching, right? Because some people need to be coached with love. Some people need to be coached with less love. Some people need more high touch point, less high touch point. You start to learn how to coach the person to do the thing. EOS is the same thing. We spend the first 3 days in EOS with the foundational building days. That is getting them to understand the tools, right? Understand that they need it. Eat healthy, work out, right? Understand they need to have meetings, have goals. Once they got that, the rest of what we do is the other side. And that's the compliancy piece and making sure they're actually adhering to it. And we're lucky that there are tools baked into the system to help us do that. But again, some of my EOS clients need more love, more touch points. Some need less love and some need a firmer fist or however. But it's really that intricate part of coaching that's kind of hard to articulate that is translated over through both worlds better than anything else, I'd say.
Yeah. I love everything that you just said because I've personally trained, several times in my life as well. And you're absolutely right. At a foundational level, people understand how to work out and they understand how to lift weights. But having a coach that is going to hold you accountable to come in 3, 4, 5 times a week, having a coach to be there to tweak your form when it's not exactly perfect and you're at risk of
Yes.
injuring yourself, having a
Yes.
coach to help push you to that 15th rep when you're at 10 and you think there's no way that you can get to 15.
Yes.
That is what coaching is all about. And it's the same thing with us in EOS. It's so funny because sometimes when I reach out to try to help prospective clients, they almost get offended, like, you know
Yeah.
nothing about my business. And I have to take a step back and just kind of laugh and that, like, listen, I know you're great at your business. There's a reason why your business
Yeah.
is
You're in the
successful.
gym. You're working out. You're doing the thing.
You're
Yeah.
doing the thing, but I'm here to just take you from good to great. right?
Yeah.
The book by Jim Collins, to help fine tune some of the operations, fine tune some of the things that you do in the business and help you do them better, help
Yeah.
you get from point A to point B faster, right? So,
Yeah. You just touched on a really good point that I talk about frequently is that I think sometimes people think that to run their business on EOS, I tell people, I help you make a jump. Okay. I'm going to help you make a leap. And people, I think, initially think, well, that's a leap from bad or unsuccessful to successful, right? So they think, well, if my company's not in a bad spot, I don't need EOS. And I'm like, no, I'll help you make a leap. Maybe it's from bad to not bad. Maybe it's from not bad to good. Maybe it's from good to great. But there's always an opportunity to get better. So I think people have this head trash where they think, well, my business is not bad, so I don't need EOS. And that is not true because your business can be great and we can get it maybe potentially phenomenal, right? There's always a leap that can be made. And that's what we do as implementers, help them make that jump.
yes, yes, yes. The jump. It's taking the leap. It's first off taking a leap of faith at the beginning, right? Because it's bringing on someone external from the organization where there has to be that trust factor of letting them into this family, letting them into the team, and allowing them to guide, allowing us to guide them through this process and this journey of EOS. Us knowing that at the end of this journey, they are going to be a far superior organization just from doing the fundamentals significantly better, getting everyone in the organization bought into that vision, understanding that vision and wanting to be a part of it, and then going out and executing with accountability and discipline.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. And that's with the asterisk of if they pull that compliancy lever, right? Because in between sessions, they have to do the work, they have to do the things. But yeah,
Yes, yes. So, Cyrus, again, you went to North Dakota State, played for the Bison. Again, one of the most successful programs in the United States, Division One FCS. What are the characteristics of championship football teams? And then, secondly, what are the characteristics of successful businesses or organizations?
yeah, and I think we've accidentally touched on a few of them already, but I think number one is having a common goal, right? Having a common goal that everybody agrees on and everybody believes in, right? Because everybody at NDSU believes like we can win it all. Like that is no one is a common belief we all believe in. And I think at other programs potentially they're saying the words, but they don't actually internalize it. They don't actually believe it. They're like, oh, I'm going to say this thing, but I don't really think we can beat NDSU, right? For whatever the thing is. The same thing happens in organizations where the most successful teams, everybody truly believes in the vision and the plan. They believe they can go from a $5 million company to a $100 million company, and they truly believe it. So all of their energy, their actions are directed towards that thing. The unsuccessful organizations, like some unsuccessful football teams, the leaders are saying it, the head coach and the coordinators might be saying it, but the position coaches are like, these guys are crazy. Like, we'll be lucky if we win the conference, right? And you see that in organizations too, where the visionary is like, we're going to be $100 million company by 2030. Maybe a couple of leadership team members agree, but then you have a couple who don't truly believe it. So then that message is getting dissipated through their company. Like, hey guys, like, I don't know what he's talking about, 100 million. Let's just do our job. Let's just hit this quarter's numbers. Don't like, and it creates this chaos throughout the organization. So I think being aligned and truly believing in the vision is probably one of the most important things.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I love the quote by Michael Jordan that says, if you think and achieve as a team, the individual accolades will take care of themselves. Talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence win championships.
Yeah, go said it best.
The GOAT said it best. And to your point, if you have a bunch of people in the organization who are out for themselves, who are simply out to make the most money, to clock out when the clock hits 5, who don't necessarily believe in winning that championship, who don't believe in hitting that 10 million mark in revenue, then the odds of you actually achieving that goal
Yeah.
become way harder. And
Yeah.
and it also comes back to, I always talk about the analogy of rowing the boat and actually thinking about, if you and I are rowing a boat and you're rowing a little bit this way and I'm rowing even just slightly the other way, we can be working really damn hard and
Really
going
hard.
nowhere
Yeah.
fast,
Yeah.
right?
That's what I tell people all the time. Like, you're running on a treadmill right now. Like, you guys are working really, really hard. Like, you're sweat. I can see you're working hard, but you have not moved. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
So,
you kind of segued into my next point of a successful business and team is the vision and then the people, right? Because again, you can have the coordinator, you can have the coach, you can have all of it, but if then I as a player just can't cover the slot receiver, or if I can't come down and tackle, if I can't do my job, the vision is kind of a moot point, right? So you have to have the vision, of course, it's important and get that buy-in, but then you got to have the right players that can actually execute, right? Same thing in the business. You can have the buy-in, like, yes, we can get there. But then if you look throughout the organization, if you don't have the right people that can actually execute on their roles and responsibilities, which might not be tackling the slot, but it might be hitting a sales goal, whatever it is, it's not going to work. So you need the vision, you need the people, right? You need, both are important, obviously.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, let's look at you, for example, Cyrus. You were an incredible safety, but let's face it, if they would have put you at receiver, you might not have seen the field because I know you can't catch.
No, absolutely not.
I'm kidding. Actually,
I never dropped the interception. All right.
okay, okay, okay. Well, let's put it this way. Let's put it for me at receiver. I couldn't have played linebacker because I didn't love contact, right?
Right.
And so it's KYP, know your personnel,
Yeah.
and in organizations it's the same thing. Maybe you've got a guy who is great at being in front of the clients or being in front of customers, but he really lacks attention to detail. You can't have him in an operations role or he's going to fail. It's know your personnel, getting those right people, people who share your organization's core values, who are bought in the right seats where what they love to do and what they're best at, they are
Yes.
in that seat where they can
Oh,
help
this is
this
so good.
organization.
This is so good. I love the football. We're going to talk football all day. I love it because,
Yes.
again, in football, it seems so obvious, right? You get the person in. I'm going to bring it. I'm going to recruit Cyrus or whoever it is. Like, that's the right person. He fits our core values. Like, okay. And then they put me at corner, running back. I played both ways in high school. So I'll use running back as an example. I get to college. I cannot play running back in college. Like, I cannot do it. But they're like, hey, we still have the right guy, but this is not the right spot for him. So they moved me to safety, and I was successful. Okay. If I wasn't good at safety or running back, they are not going to keep me around, right? They're going to find someone to replace me. The next year they won't renew my scholarship because they are in the business of succeeding and winning. So no matter how much they like me, no matter how much like I am the right person, if there's not a spot for me to execute, they're going to find someone better. And they'll make that decision quick. You know, it's Division I football. Like, they're not going to mess around with you. In business, that happens all the time. They'll have the right person. We love him. We love him. He's such good for our culture. The team loves him. He's not good here. So in EOS, we tell them, well, find a spot where they can execute. Well, there's no other spot available. And they hold on to him or they create a role for him. And it gets just wonky. But we encourage those people to let them go because they are, for the most part, we work with for-profit businesses. And if you are a for-profit company, you cannot keep people around just because you like them. You are in the business of winning. And these are these hard decisions that you have to make, but the EOS tools will help you identify who and when and how to make these decisions.
Well said, Cyrus. And to take it a step further with the people component, and so we talked about right seat, having the person who can thrive in their particular position or in their role. Now, having the right people is someone who fits your culture, they represent your core values, and they exhibit them consistently. Now, I know that both of us had teammates in college who weren't the right people, who didn't consistently exhibit the core values, who maybe were doing the wrong things off the field. Maybe they were a cancer in the locker room talking smack about the coaches. And again, you could feel how much they polluted the chemistry of the team. To your point, if you had a great coaching staff, they would eliminate that player immediately. And
Yeah, we had
fortunately,
very real life examples of when that happened. Some of the best players on our team were not a core values fit, did not fit the culture of our team, and they had to make the hard decision of moving on from one of the best players on our team because they didn't fit our culture.
And guess what? In the short term, that hurts, but over the long term, that's the only way you can be successful because those
Correct.
people are holding the organization back. And And when they have that bad attitude, they're pulling in 3, 4, 5 other guys with them. And then pretty soon you got 20 players on the team who are causing issues. And
Correct.
all too often in business and in organizations, we see it all the time where people are like, yeah, well, I think he might turn a corner, or like he's got
He's our top
potential.
sales guy. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And yet he is plaguing the organization over the long term.
Correct. Absolutely. No doubt about it.
It's a tough situation for leaders to have when in the short term you're going to sacrifice sales, you're going to sacrifice making money or whatever it may be, but it's just necessary to let those people go very, very, very quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And we see, and again, it's probably one of the most common problems that EOS helps discover.
Absolutely. Well, and so I just love this conversation and the similarities between football and business. And so getting to the topic of data and having a scorecard that organizations run on, 5 to 15 high-level numbers to help you keep an absolute pulse on the organization, help you keep an absolute pulse on what's working and what's not working. It's funny how in in football and in sports, statistics are everything. Like
Everything.
everything. Coaches analyze statistics top and bottom, and they know how many rush yards, how many yards per carry. I mean, the list goes on and on. Fantasy football was created all from
Mhm.
statistics. And in business, it's so interesting how all too often leaders are making these subjective decisions that aren't data-based at all. And
Yeah.
so it's amazing that we do what we do and help these organizations build scorecards so they can actually run their organization on objective information.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, yeah, the amount of detail that goes into a successful football program is like hard for people to comprehend. Like we used to, I'm sure you guys did too. We'd practice on whatever day. The next day, we'd go and watch the entire practice. And since then, they have graded every player on every play during practice. Did you line up right? Alignment, assignment, technique. Did you do it right? And they'd have it down to the fraction. Like, yeah, okay. And then zooming out a little bit in terms of the scorecard, we never talked really about the scoreboard, right? Like we would talk about in our defensive meetings, there were 5 to 15 measurables that if we did these 5 things, 5 to 7 things, and we looked up at the scoreboard, hopefully we'd win because we couldn't score points, right? So hopefully we'd win. And we had measurables like if we can keep their third down conversion rate under this number, if we can, hold them under X amount of points. If we can keep their yards per pass, we had like 5 to 15 things. Like if these 7 things happen, at the end of the game, we'll look up and most likely we'll have won. The offense did their job. In business, they do it the other way. They're scoreboard watching the whole time, and they're not worried about the intricacies. And when I try to teach the scorecard, I'm like, what are those 5 to 15 things that if you do it, you can't guarantee success, but you are hedging your bet as well as you can to make sure if you do these if I hit these sales numbers, if I make these many door knocks, if I do these 5 to 15 things, it'll result most likely in a win.
Yes, yes, yes. That's what I constantly preach as well is we're not looking at the scoreboard. It's what is the work that we put in on a day-to-day basis that helps lead to the final scoreboard
Yeah.
numbers.
Yeah. And it's incredible because then we'd look back and then we got to see in real time, like, wow, we forced 2 turnovers. We held them under 13 points. They were under 50% on third down conversions. And look at, we won, but the games where it's like we didn't force a turnover, they completed all their third downs, they scored 21 points, and then sometimes we get lucky and offense scores 28. But every once in a while, I was like, shit, man, like we didn't do our job.
Yes, 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 exactly. Exactly. And again, it's the same thing on the offensive side of the ball. If we only had 4 first downs in a game, if we only had 100 passing yards, if we
Right,
only gave up 6 sacks, there's no way we're winning
right,
that game. And so it's the same thing in business in that, okay, if we're only making 3 sales calls a day, then we're not going to be able to lead to these 10 major deals each month. If we only send out emails to 500 people on a monthly basis, that's not nearly enough to lead to our sales goals. It's what is the work and the effort that leads to those end numbers. That's
right.
what must be tracked because that is what leads to the consistency over the long term.
And there really should be no surprises, right? Like if you get to the end of the quarter and you've missed your sales or revenue goal, and then you look back at your scorecard and it's all red, like it shouldn't really be a surprise to you, right? I guess it'd be more
Yes.
alarming. I guess it could be alarming if you had an all green scorecard and missed your revenue, but then I'd argue that you had a shitty or you had a bad scorecard.
It's all right.
You were measuring the things that didn't matter, right?
Yeah. A perfect example of that is when I was at RCM Construction, one of my, I guess not scorecard, but rocks, one of my 90-day priorities was to try to have 2 sales from my network. Now, in construction, these are major sales, right? But again, I was tracking the wrong thing because I could put in a ton of effort and not get those 2 sales. But what should have been tracked was, okay, I'm going to make 300 calls this month to my network to try to drum up and lead to those 2 sales, right? So
Right.
that's the
Yeah.
whole idea of the scorecard is what is the effort and what is the work and what are the things I need to do to lead to that final scorecard number.
And again, it goes back to this topic we talked about earlier, the competency and compliance. Like you can understand, I need to make these calls, I need to do these things, but then if you don't do it, it doesn't work. You need both. You have to understand what needs to be tracked, and then you have to do the thing, put in the work to actually make those numbers come to light.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, Cyrus, you talked about having 5 young, beautiful girls. I truly don't know how you do it. Just following you on social media, it's incredible. They're all beautiful. Your
No,
wife
I appreciate
is
it.
lovely. What does family mean to you?
It's, I mean, it's everything, man. It's like I love my work and I love my house and I love my car, whatever it is. But like family is everything. Like there's no decision that I make that they are not top of mind. There's no fear or challenge I come across that I don't pull from them to get motivation to actually like try to do the scary thing. I mean, I can't overemphasize enough, man. I'm gonna get teary eyed on your podcast, but like how important
Let it
like
fly.
the girls, man. I call it Cyrus' sorority. We're so blessed. They're 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11, and we're in the thick of it, man. But it is like it's the greatest. It's the greatest days of my life, and we get to live the EOS life. So I get so much time with them now compared to what I used to get with them, and it's awesome, man.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I love what Matthew McConaughey said in that he said, when I was a kid, I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up. But the one thing I knew was I wanted to be a father.
Mm,
And that is the same for me. I have not had any kids yet. I'm not married yet, but I know deep in my heart that that is something that I
yeah.
want deeply in my future. And having a great friend like you and seeing you in the thick of it, but yet
Okay.
loving it nonetheless, like
Yeah.
loving all the work that goes into it. It's so cool to see, man.
Yeah. No, it is really yeah, it's the best. They are equally the best and hardest parts of my life, but it's all good, man. It's all good.
And so, how has being a father helped you become a better coach?
That is a Dude, wow, it's a really good question. What I realized is that you have to parent every child differently, right? Like we thought we had it figured out with our first one, and then the second one comes out and she's different. And the third one comes out, like we have 5 completely different personalities. And I have to have the wherewithal to parent them differently. Like my oldest daughter, she's a high fact finder for my Colby people out there. Like she's very analytical and she needs to understand things. Like this is why we do it. She needs to understand. My third one, she's in the middle. She's our spitfire. Like she doesn't care about the data. So sometimes with her, you gotta be a little more stern. Where if I tried that approach with my oldest daughter, she'd start crying. So like I've learned that like I have to manipulate my parenting style to get the results I want for my kid. That sounds so, but it's like that's what it is. And I realized that in my coaching business, obviously, that again, some of my clients are they're manufacturing companies, high fact finders. They need the data, they need the numbers, and they need to understand. And some of my clients are the middle child where they are shooting from the hip and they just need to be like pointed in the right direction and they have all this energy. And once you point them in the right direction, you just push them and they go. So it's just really manipulating your parenting style to your kids and then kind of manipulating your coaching style to your client.
That's fascinating. And we talk about that, right? In our session room, in that the parenting effectiveness training. Who's the author of that? I can't remember.
Thomas Gordon. Thomas
Thomas,
Gordon.
yes, Thomas Gordon, and how when with parenting and with being a leader in an organization, there's commonalities in that you have a handful of rules. You have to repeat yourself often, and what's the third?
Consistent. You gotta be consistent.
Consistent. Gotta
Yep.
be consistent.
And that's like really when I hear that, I mean, I think that's like the messaging. Like me and my wife have to be consistent. Like I can't tell one kid something and then she tells them something else. Same thing in business. The visionary can't tell the team one thing and the integrator tell them something else. Like they have to be on the same page. They have to be consistent in their messaging.
Absolutely. And a handful of rules, not 23, not 50, a handful of rules so that they can actually remember them and follow them
Yeah.
on a day-to-day
Yeah.
basis.
Yeah. Which are your core values, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Awesome.
Awesome, man.
Well, Cyrus, tell me, what is a quote or a motto that you live by?
You know what? You sent me this question ahead of time, and I told myself I was going to think about it. I don't have a good answer for you. A quote or motto that I live by. It kind of changes. It changes week to week, month to month, year to year. Let me sit on that for 30 seconds. I'll come back. I'll come at you with something.
Sure, sure.
What do you live by? What do you live by? That might prompt me to think of mine.
It's so funny because I did the same thing. I was like, I need to look into this. And I had a hard time actually coming up with one thing. But the one thing that's relevant for me right now, I think, is the Bible verse in Psalms that just says, "Be still and know that I am God."
Mm,
With all the craziness in the world, with all of the craziness that we see on social media, on the news, all of the craziness that we experience in our own lives, and with setting our own aspirations and our own goals, sometimes we can get in our head about not being far enough yet. But when you really slow things down and be still and
mm,
know that God is here and that your life is unfolding exactly as it's supposed to, there's peace in that, and that allows you to stay calm and cool and collected and know that everything you desire is on its way as long as you remain steadfast and continue to put that effort in.
yeah.
So that's a
Man,
powerful one
that's
for
really
me.
we probably should have ended with yours because that was really good. But I want to do my job as your guest here to give you an answer. And I think the one so my Instagram, I have quotes all over my Instagram. Follow me at Coach_Lemon. But
There he is.
I think the one that sticks out to me is it's simple, but it's always bet on yourself. And I'm gonna kind of dovetail a couple conversations here, and then I got a jet. Going back to like my role as a father and like how I parent my children, when I decided to pivot out of strength and conditioning and training into EOS, it was scary and it was a risk and I didn't know if I'd be good at it. And it's like everything that I knew I was football and fitness. So like to take on this new identity was very scary. So my wife and I were talking a long time about like if I should take this risk, and I'm more risk averse than she is. So she's like, yeah, do it. And I'm like, well, hold on. Like, let's just talk about it here. But what it came down to is that I am certain that at some point in my child's life, they're going to come to me with a decision, right? Should I take this risk or should I not take this risk? Like, Dad, what do you think I should do? And I want to be able to look them in the eyes and their dad and say, like, bet on yourself, like, do it. Like, you have one life, like, please, like, you can do it. You're capable of anything. I was petrified of the fact that then they would look at me and say, well, you did it. You've been in this gym for 30 years and you don't even like it here. So this idea of like betting on yourself was what really helped me take the leap from the weight room to the boardroom. And it's something I continue to do, some small ways and some large ways. And it's something that I hope my girls will always do their entire life, which is bet on themselves, bet on their capabilities, because I know they can go far beyond anything I've ever done if they just do that.
It's beautiful, Cyrus. Beautiful. We will end on that. So how can people follow you?
Yeah, man. So LinkedIn, obviously, just find there's not a lot of Cyrus Lemons out there. So find Cyrus Lemon on LinkedIn. And then my Instagram is Coach_Lemon_. That's where you can find me. And yeah, hopefully see you there. And what
Awesome.
before I jet, man, I just want to say thank you again. It's truly an honor. I know to be your first. You got a large network, and to be the first person you ask, it really means a lot, man. I appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate you as a friend and as a coach for me and helping me navigate this EOS life, brother. So you mean a
Yes,
lot to
sir.
me, and I'm stoked to continue to grow our businesses and grow our lives, man.
That's
So
right. And I'll see you next week in San Antonio.
see you in San Antonio, brother. All
Awesome,
right.
man. See ya.
Yep. See ya.
Thanks.